Could parts of the United States actually want to become part of Canada? It might sound far-fetched, even laughable at first, but beneath the surface lies a complex web of political, cultural, and economic connections that raise a fascinating question. Are there US states more aligned with Canada than with their own country? Welcome to News Nexus. Today, we're diving into a thought-provoking geopolitical exploration. From the forests of Oregon to the icy reaches of Alaska, from progressive Vermont to practical Michigan, we'll examine whether some US states share more in common with Canada, and whether there's any serious conversation or even fantasy about switching sides. Let's begin with history. The border between the US and Canada is the longest undefended boundary in the world. For centuries, it has represented more than just a line. It's been a symbol of peaceful coexistence, but also of divergence. Though the US and Canada are close allies, their systems, values, and social structures have evolved in very different directions. During the 1800s, some parts of British North America flirted with the idea of joining the US, especially as economic pressures mounted. But in the opposite direction, there have also been waves of American interest in moving north. During the Vietnam War era, thousands of US citizens, especially draft resistors, fled to Canada. Many stayed, integrating into Canadian society and influencing its progressive culture. Fast forward to the 2000s, when dissatisfaction with national politics and growing ideological divides in the US led to new and creative discussions. One such idea was Cascadia, a proposed independent region composed of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. While most saw it as symbolic or humorous, it captured something real: a cultural and environmental alignment that transcends borders. Now let's talk politics. In recent decades, the political divide within the United States has become increasingly polarized. Progressive states on the West Coast and in the Northeast often find themselves ideologically at odds with more conservative states in the South and Midwest. This divide isn't just about party lines, it's about governance, values, and long-term vision. Take Vermont, for example, known for its emphasis on environmental protection, universal healthcare, and social equity. Its values often mirror those found in Canadian provinces like Quebec or Ontario. It's not surprising that during particularly divisive US elections, some Vermont residents half-jokingly talk about joining Canada. But is it really just a joke? Similarly, Oregon and Washington have built reputations for environmental leadership, social tolerance, and progressive economic policies. Compare them with British Columbia, and you'll find remarkably similar worldviews. These regions share not just landscapes, but lifestyles, values, and governance models. And what about Alaska? Though culturally unique, Alaska is geographically isolated from the contiguous US and shares a long land border with Canada's Yukon Territory. Its economy heavily depends on natural resources, much like parts of Canada. There have been times when Alaskans have expressed frustration with federal policies that seem out of touch with local realities. While formally joining Canada is not a mainstream idea, the notion of closer economic cooperation has been seriously discussed. Economically, Canada's universal healthcare system and stronger social safety nets appeal to many Americans. For states grappling with uninsured populations and rising medical costs, the Canadian model looks increasingly attractive. In border states like Maine and Michigan, it's not uncommon for residents to cross into Canada for prescription drugs, dental care, or even major medical treatments, all at significantly lower costs. These cross-border interactions aren't just personal, they're economic lifelines. Michigan and Ontario share critical trade corridors. The auto industry depends on seamless cross-border supply chains. In fact, over $1.5 billion in goods and services cross the US-Canada border every single day. And then there's culture. Canadians and residents of northern US states often share similar values when it comes to education, climate policy, and even civility in public discourse. Many Americans living near the border watch Canadian news, consume Canadian media, and even send their children to Canadian universities. The question isn't just whether US states want to become Canadian, it's also about what kind of national identity people feel most aligned with. As American society becomes more divided, urban versus rural, progressive versus conservative, more people are looking across the border and wondering, would life be better there? Now, it's important to stress that no state is actively pursuing annexation or secession to join Canada. This remains largely in the realm of cultural observation and political commentary. But the fact that the conversation exists at all tells us something about the state of modern geopolitics and about the growing regionalism within the US. Could we ever see a serious movement in our lifetimes? Probably not. The legal, political, and logistical barriers are enormous. But that doesn't mean the sentiment isn't real, especially during times of national crisis or deep political dissatisfaction. In a world where global alliances are constantly shifting, where identity is as much about values as geography, these quiet cultural alignments deserve attention. They reveal how closely connected regions can feel, even across national borders, and how sometimes the flags we wave may not fully reflect the communities we live in. Thank you for joining us on News Nexus. If you enjoyed this exploration, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.